Grabando.
We're the line in the sand. We fight against the forces of darkness.
At some point I heard that you wanted to use this demonic language. That
You heard about that?
This Eric Singer from the guy from Wired Videos.
And that last sound, that, which you may recognize from Arabic, that constricted, what we call a pharyngeal fricative.
And at some point you dropped that idea. But what did you learn from that experience? What did you learn from those languages?
Yeah, it was amazing actually. I mean, it was really, that to me was one of the greatest sort of things that I explored, was the fact that, you know, my idea behind it was that he's a demon spawned from hell, right? So his native tongue wouldn't be English. Like his native tongue would be this demonic language that Eric and I worked on these various, you know, ways to use your throat almost as a different instrument than human speech. And that he learned English late. But the interesting thing about it is it really taught me that, because one of the things I like about him is he's a guy who's big and who has a huge presence, but doesn't really have a voice yet. Like he doesn't know how to talk to his dad. He doesn't know his place in the world. He doesn't know who he is. He doesn't know if his genetics define him or if his choices define him. And so in that way, he's searching for his voice. And so that was really the most profound thing that I learned from that, was that, and in that way, his voice gets trapped, his voice physically gets trapped as well. And so I learned a lot about him through that study, but it went through a really circuitous route. It's interesting that you heard about that. That was, yeah, that was something that initially I thought might be cool, and then it didn't really work.
Oi, I need some ID, love.
Are you serious?
And you mentioned before that, that you are also like a more method actor, that if you are angry in some scene, you wanted to go angry in that scene. But also in the dinner with Patton Oswalt and Ron Perlman. Ron told you that, hey, it's Hellboy, have a good time. Yeah. How did you deal with that, with this method actor?
Yeah, I mean, you know, it's a balance, I think. I think it's a balance. And it's funny, like I do like to get into my work in that way and really like try to go for it as hard as I can. And then there is this thing where sometimes the choices that you make that are in that direction are just bad. And then you have to lighten up and just let it flow and like and sometimes when I let go in the movie and just improv or just like had a good time, it was sort of very effective. So it's a bit of a balance, you know, it's a bit of a push-pull in terms of like what your best stuff is, and you're kind of experimenting the whole time, and sometimes you can feel it in the air, feel it in the day. It's like you might, like a chef, like you might need a certain ingredient, like a new spice or something, and so you put that in there, and then, you know, so you're always kind of experimenting.
And also Lobster Johnson it's in the movie, right? And it's played by Thomas Hayden Church, and he did Spider-Man 3, and you did also Suicide Squad.
Yeah.
How does it feel right now as an actor to be in this superhero genre that you can be in this movie and later on in that movie? Yeah,
it's fun. I mean, I think it's, you know, the movies themselves, there's so many of them, and it's becoming such a cultural phenomenon that like it's a mythology, you know. But like that way, again, it's like I'm like a big theater guy, right? So I've seen actors play Coriolanus, and then I've seen them play Troilus, and then I've seen them play Henry V, and I've seen them play Hamlet. And in that way, you know, it's just kind of a bunch of plays, and all these actors are getting in and playing them. And a lot of the good actors are getting in there and doing multiple things, and I like it. I like the feeling of like a company of actors working on stuff. I don't mind when people do different crossover stuff. I think it's fun. And you also mentioned that superhero movies are the mythos of modern America. Can you elaborate more on that? Yeah. I mean, you know, I think the ancient Greeks had Achilles and Hector, and the Trojans had, but they had Achilles and Agamemnon and Menelaus, and we have Captain America and Iron Man, and you know, and they're people with almost deity-like power or demigod power who are fighting, you know, in these ways and have tragic flaws, and they're big stories too on big epic scale. So in a way, yeah, I think they're things that, you know, they are, to me, our modern pantheon of gods. They represent different identities or different passions in all of us. And so the great thing about playing this guy is, like, he's, you know, the dark, confused passion, possibly, that I know and understand and want to bring into this mythos, is more of this almost monstrous underbelly, which is confusing.
Go out there, ghost or not, it's a risk. We don't take risks.
What do you think it will happen if the kids from Hawkins and also David Harbour find
meet Hellboy? I mean, initially it'd be problematic. I think there'd be a lot of misunderstanding, but I have a feeling that ultimately at the end of the day they'd probably get along pretty well. Maybe go and, you know, I think Hopper and Hellboy would probably go have a beer together and, like, fight the good fight.